But actually, some common sense did prevail this week because an employment tribunal did actually reach the right decision. With regards to my next guest, I'm just delighted to be joined by the Executive Director of Sex Matters, Maya Forstater, to Tice Talk. Maya, a very good morning. Thanks for being with us. So this was obviously a very, very significant week for you in that you won your, what I think is the final case. Is that right? Tell us what happened and the history leading up to it.
Yes, this case has been 4 years long, and this is the final judgment. I was awarded £106,000 in compensation, including what they call aggravated damages, which means recognition that my employer acted in a high-handed way, in the way that they presented me to the media as being somebody who might harass and cause harm to colleagues. So it's a complete vindication, and obviously the money is nice, and it sends a message to other employers that discriminating against people because they have the perfectly ordinary belief that sex is real and sex matters will cost them serious money.
And well done you for battling this so hard for so long, because it's been a number of years, and it is a clear marker in the sand. But you must be aghast at some of the things I've been talking about earlier. A colonel reservist in the army being forced out. Every day there's another story of madness.
Absolutely. Kelvin Wright, the army reservist, reading his story, it sounds so similar to mine. These vague complaints about transphobia, when they won't tell you what that is. They write these reports about you, won't show you the reports, make your life a living hell, and drive people out of work. And at Sex Matters, we hear about this every week from people. We had our board meeting last week at the People's History Museum in Manchester. We hired a room there. And after we tweeted what a great location and a nice museum it was, they got a little pile on social media, and they apologised for having rented the room to us.
I mean, it's truly shocking. Doing this show, when I gave my Sunday sermon a few weeks back, I had the cheek and the temerity to suggest that there were only two sexes and two genders, and I didn't want this stuff taught to our children. And TikTok took it down within a couple of hours, describing it as hate speech and inciting violence.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And you know, in the workplace, it is. It's the most damaging, I think. You know, things that if you put people's livelihood at risk, then they really, really find it very difficult to speak. You know, there are so many people on social media who are anonymous because, if they spoke out in their own name, they would have a complaint against them to their employer.
Yeah, well, and Maya, I hope you've got a bank account still to be able to put the compensation into, because I've been talking earlier about a number of us have had accounts basically cancelled, and there's a vicar who he's lost his bank account after many, many years of good service. I mean, a vicar no less, who's lost his account from the Yorkshire Building Society because he had the temerity to question some of this sort of transgender ideology stuff.
I hope some of these people are willing and able to take this through the courts, because we have protection against discrimination based on your belief, and banks can't just throw you out as the customer because they don't agree with your beliefs. It's exactly the same as saying we won't serve you because you're Jewish. You have the same protection for your beliefs if your belief is that sex is real as if you had a religion.
That's right, but the reality is we've seen others. How hard has this multi-year drama and horror been for your family? I mean, obviously, and indeed yourself. It must have been so difficult.
It has, and the worst thing on my family, I think, has been to see me traduced in the media as being somebody who might harass somebody who might cause harm. And that's what the Centre for Global Development, my employer, did. 85 employees wrote a letter which was published by Pink News, basically saying that I'm a bigot, and the management agreed with that. And for my sons to have to see that all over the media was just awful.
Just appalling. And Maya, do you think this has as bad or worse now in the big corporates, the multinationals, the big think tanks, than the public sector, or are they sort of much of a muchness?
Most of the cases that we see tend to be in the public sector and the voluntary sector. I think the corporate sector, where complaints come up, they tend to be more professional in dealing with them. So we haven't seen the employment tribunals in the corporate sector. But in terms of pushing this ideology on their employees, it's just as strong. You know, they're training people, they're requiring people to put pronouns in their bio and all of those kinds of things. So it's really bad across all sectors. And Sex Matters has just done a survey where we've had over 2,000 people come back and tell us what it's like to be so-called gender critical, which is just to have ordinary beliefs about sex in the workplace and how they are bullied and harassed.
And you actually had a congratulatory message from none other than the great author J.K. Rowling, who sent you a message of good wishes. I mean, and she's obviously had a lot of grief for her views. I mean, that's quite something.
Yes, and she's been supporting my case since, I think she was watching it since the beginning. And then in 2019, when I lost the very first round, she tweeted about my case. That was her very first tweet about this issue.
Right.
And it put my case into the public attention, and she's been so supportive all the way. It's been amazing.
Well,
Martina Navratilova said well done, and just thousands and thousands of people.
Well, let me tell you, you've got lots of support, Maya, from our listeners. Fiona's just messaged in, Maya, you're an amazing woman. Can I say thank you? And that's the thing is, amongst all the grief, and some of us, we get it for putting our head above the parapet, but there are so many people out there who are so grateful for people like you standing up. Just whilst I've got you, Maya, you may have seen the story about police officers at yesterday's London Pride March being banned from wearing the badge of the Union Jack that they have on their uniform with a thin blue line, which is a sign of respect to officers who've lost their lives in the course of service. Where does this end?
I didn't see that one. I was watching the argy-bargy between Just Stop Oil and Just Stop Puberty, I'm afraid.
It's just unbelievable. There was, Just Stop Oil, we're trying to find out who's got their bank accounts. But and then the other story finally is that we're now reading the NHS nurses course at the University of Essex. They've actually got a module on how to strike and how to be an activist. All of this at the taxpayer's expense. I mean, it's a never-ending sort of trend downwards, isn't it?
It is, and organisations are losing sight of their mission by training staff in taking these identity-based complaints and in taking their eye off the ball of what they're supposed to be doing, which is serving their customers and their users and doing their job in a professional way. This whole thing about bringing your whole self to work is causing huge problems for organisations. They're spending huge amounts of time on the kinds of things that happen to me at work, where what they should be doing is saying everyone is different, everyone has human rights, people should be professional at work, and people who call offence at other people's beliefs need to get a sense of proportion.
Absolutely right. And all credit to your other messages coming in supporting you about, because it's not surprising we've got a productivity crisis if, frankly, we're wasting all this time, energy, effort and resources and meetings and heaven knows what's and Zoom calls, when actually people should be working out how do you grow the business, how do you grow the charity, how do you make the think tank come up with better, more informed policy ideas.
How to think. Don't stop your employees thinking.
My concern is they're encouraging them to think the wrong thing. Maya, thank you so much for joining me this morning. The right result for you. You must be delighted. Let's hope that is the end of it. And let's hope that other organisations around the country wake up, smell the coffee and realise we are not going to tolerate this nonsense. Great people like Maya will stand up against you and will win in the courts and will be backed by organisations like the Free Speech Union. If you've got any problem contact Toby Young at the Free Speech Union, because they will stand up for this. We're going to take this on. We're going to win. We will not stop. Let's head to Derbyshire.